Hello everyone, this is Cosmodius, and so I wanted to do a video today about basically just a few quality of life things involving my style of playing the game. So to begin with, this is Stationeers, and I'm using a few mods that I'm going to be using in this little video here. And so the first one is going to be, I should activate solar system. I kind of like that one. The first one is easier creative mode, which lets me it lets me actually use creative mode inside of creative mode, so that way I don't lose any health or anything while I don't get thirsty or hungry. Um, Next is render distance, which lets me see off in the distance. Next is network painter, which lets me paint the entire network. Higher ore yields, and infinite paint, which makes my spray paint cans never run out. And so I really like Europa. It's always been my favorite map. And that's because it's always been like, whenever the first time they came out with Europa, it was the hardest map, and essentially I never really get enough of playing this specific map. Mimes is arguably more interesting, but it's not really hard, or depending on how you see it. Like, if you're bad at solutions for certain problems, you're gonna hate Mimes because you have to get your own atmosphere up and everything else like that. But Europa is that hard one that I found interesting, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it in creative, the custom world mode, and we're going to do the original Europa, and I'm going to be disabling a couple of features so that way I don't lag into infinity. And I think we're just going to keep everything really default. I normally like to do this, so I guess I'll go ahead and do it. Slap a, let's see, let's go like vaporwave blue over here. And I think we're set. I'm gonna do creative mode, meaning I'm not going to mine, so I don't care what my minables are. And this world is just temporary, so the first thing we do is set our difficulty to creative. Make sure that doesn't land on you, it will hurt you. And go ahead and get our authoring tool out and start working. So if you hold C when you write left click, it deletes things. And the sun comes up all the time from the east when the map starts. So Jupiter is supposed to appear right there in the sky, but it's not there because the developer never really fixed the this custom world here. Whenever they broke it long ago, and it just like doesn't have a skybox anymore. So the idea is to create high up, and we're supposed to create something high up like this. Um, and I have a particular style I do that. All right, and this is just my general setup, by the way. I've used this setup every single time. Um, I've set up a base. This is what I use whenever I'm playing on my own. I'm not using anybody else's layout. And other people seem to like this formula too. Apparently, there's one guy I met, and he really liked this setup, and he only ever used this setup because he thought that it was a great solution to many problems that come up with space, and it was flexible to add a few things here and there, and it wasn't too cluttered. Most people's will be cluttered, so they'll do the 3 by 3 room, and then they'll do the bigger room that doesn't have atmosphere, and that'll be their room that they use for everything else. Alright, next we get our doors ready. And so if you set this door, it's going to go to essentially clockwise relative to the square you placed it on, so it'll open that way. And we want these to do the same, so we'll set them like that. As you can see, they open that way. And there's a single spot that we want a locker, and that's it. And we're probably not even going to use it. We do want the composite doors, we don't want the other doors because they don't allow for certain flexible things to be done. And this gives us an ambient light, so we can now see around. And so normally here is where I'd have my power generator, whatever that is. Or over here I'd have it too, depending on how far my base I was before I did this. But normally I would already have an auto lathe up, and I just got rid of my other form of power generation. Well, yeah, the solid fuel generator normally sticks around on this map. And then I'd also have gotten rid of my, I would have had a full-blown furnace. I never used the arc furnace after a certain time period. Cable, we want the big one. And so only in this kind of base, really in this layout, does this work so well in this manner, because if I use set up a battery, you're probably going to want the transformers to all be on the roof, but here I put the transformers underneath the base if I make any more, but you're probably not going to see that. We're going to go ahead and stop what we're doing real quick so we can put some lights up. One of the reasons I wanted to do this so quickly. For this map, we need the advanced. Now we get a sensor. We're gonna need two. We're gonna need one right here. And we'll put it right there, and then one right here. And then we're going to need vents we don't start with. And so we only start with one of these. We're gonna want this one. And I've thought of putting them on the outside, the active vents instead, and inverting the exterior and interior, if you know what that means. If you don't, I apologize. And that way it will just quickly suck air in and out. At least that's my theory. I don't know if that actually work any faster. I think we pretty much have almost everything here. Alright, so I'm going to turn my light off now. As y'all can see, we can still see it. Should be pitch black, but it's not. We set these both to 0. Pick a door. That one's the interior, so we pick the other one this time. Flashing light, gas sensor. You don't need a flashing light. There we go. Exterior should always be picked first. Alright, so I'm going to show the general layout of my base. How I normally set it all up. Alright, so the only one that has bad lighting is this one on this side. But ultimately, you can still get an idea of where everything's at. And I've always used this for the battery lights, so that way I can get a warning when a battery's about to go off, and I'll attach this to this network here, like so. That's what I'd want to do in a perfect world, of course. The reality is that, and because of the way I set my transformer up, I actually have to use heavy cables this way instead because all my transformers go out there to all the other locations. I'm just going to cable this for now. We're not actually going to be using it at the moment. Alright, now let's go ahead and do the next part. And so the new meta is apparently putting the furnace right in the middle of this block here instead, because you can box it in, keep pressure from getting out too fast. We'll do these two on the side instead. Alright, and next we're going to do the chutes. The only reason I keep this inlet right here is because of the fact that I can't really throw a certain ice inside here. You can actually throw ice in here at any time in the system. So one thing we could do is, and keep in mind, during the daytime, it's actually possible to do this during the daytime um, on Europa, but it's not possible to do this on other places all the time. So just a warning to those of you who might not know that. So, all right, and I really don't like doing this, but this is just what I gotta do. So anyway, we also get the. You don't have to use this one, by the way. I'm just gonna warn you right now. This is actually like later on you can use this one, but I don't really use these, right? Just so y'all know, I normally do, but in a different way. So ultimately, what I normally do, and I'll show it off. I have a system kind of like this. But because pipes can actually go inside windows, see, we messed it up. Iron wall. Other people use other kinds of walls. I just don't really care for it. And so I'm going to describe this really quick. to explain a concept. But I'll do it. I'll do it like this. I'll do it like this. Okay, so this equals this, right? These are both the same. The only difference is that this one actually costs more resources in terms of rarity. So you can actually build this right from the start. Like you can literally just build this right from the start on this map. And I'm gonna tell you what it does real quick because most of you probably want that in your base on Europa. You want this. Trust me. All right. So iron wall. We're not gonna build that one though. We're gonna build the fancy schmancy one. Bring an insulated tank back here. We're not really gonna worry too much about this. Another one right here. Once again, another thing you're not gonna really worry about. We're not gonna do that actually. We're not gonna do those ones. We'll just do this one for now. I'm not gonna explain the other ones because the other ones are just kind of not worth explaining. For now, we attach both of these here. And the good news is because it is a advanced furnace, we can literally control the input, output, etc. And we don't want it to output anything right now. We just don't. We want it to input everything though. Like, always input everything. Um, Not really. In the future, we will manipulate this. And the other furnace, the regular one, acts as a one-way valve in and out. So, in case you were wondering about that. Now we got a couple of things to do here. I've got my own style for this, and that's why this might look funny to some of y'all. Digital valve. Let's invert it. So the digital valve actually doesn't go the direction of the arrows, it goes whichever direction you kind of feel like. Because as long as it's open, both sides are going to mix. The game doesn't tell you that. And what we want to do here, we actually don't really need to do this like this, just so y'all know. I'm only kind of doing it this way for certain reasons. I'm not really planning on doing it this way entirely. Um, this is a buffer, right? This is a buffer. Y'all have no idea how important it is to have a buffer in this kind of system. Um, but we don't have to do it this way. What we could do instead is we could actually just do this. Right, like you see that? That's actually the same, probably, maybe, because we just want to be able to get the cold air to mix with the air inside quickly, but we don't want it to be too much. And we want the air to be able to rubber band inside of here, and if we get too much, it won't do what we want, and it'll cause a lot of problems. Um, Okay, cool. All right, so as far as I can see, we have the ability here to put air in here, or at least to mix the air from the outside with the inside. And over here, we can use the heat from the furnace, and it'll do a rubber band. That's what I call it, the rubber band effect. And all that means is that it just kind of jiggles the temperature back and forth when the materials inside here, when the air in here there's enough air for it to do that. Let's go ahead and turn our light back off. And we have a couple of more things we want to do, but before we do anything, I really want to show off the features here. One of the other things that should be done, bunch of quotations with the should be. We want to set this to 30 megapascals. And depending on how well you set up your power, you should be able to just run this right here and keep it on at all times. Whoa, hey, there we go. And just ignore it. Literally just ignore it. So we still haven't ran our wire this way yet. There we go. And now keep air coming out. That's actually a forward pressure regulator. We don't want that. What we want is the back pressure regulator. And a lot of people have their own systems for doing this, and some people disagree with my method and would argue that you should get a turbo pump or something. And so now we need to do this, and this is the ejection valve. Cooling. We'll specify its base cooling. Base heating. Right. Base cooling, base heating. And those are our valves that we need for now. Essentially everything else should self-regulate, really. And one of the things we've done that I don't think I wired yet is this. And so we have a couple of ways we could do this. The first way is we can manually make the switches attached to these over here, and we could just make some switches. We could code it all, or we could code the switch in the back. I'm not going to really bother with too much stuff too quickly. I am, however, going to go ahead and set up some switches that I know I'm going to need. Essentially, so I've never really liked doing this, but the reason why is because the furnace is one of those things where it's like this advanced furnace. Normally you have some consoles up here to show information, and I just kind of take up all the space for that. So what we'll start with is we'll start with the heating and cooling. Input, writer, and you don't have to name these, but it might be a good idea to do so. Might. And so the first one we'll do is the cooling or heating, whichever one. Oh yeah, we need to name the switches. So this one will be the cooling. This one will be the heating. We'll start with the heating. And we want, it's called a digital valve, base heating, on or off. Okay. Now we got to do cooling, digital valve, base cooling, on or off. Tested, cooling works, heating works. And now here's the tricky part. So that furnace is inputting everything. Um, it doesn't really output anything. And we kind of want it to be able to output everything that we want it to output. So what we'd have to do is we'd have to essentially get a reader of sorts, or if not a reader, we'd have to get a writer that writes the opposite. So essentially, we'd have a writer that could write the opposite for both sides so we can kind of decide if we're inputting or outputting a certain amount of any kind of material. So I'm going to go ahead and come out here and turn this on. We never really need it off for any reason. And we're just going to kind of manually do everything for now. All right, so I'm going to come out here. Actually, before we do that, let's do our final switch. All right, our final switch is storing everything. So notice that these aren't pumps. They're not pumping anything at all. All right, so this one should be the switch for ejection. This one should be the valve for ejection, digital ejection, and then on or off. We'll go ahead and test it. Ah, ah. Looks like we're not testing it there. And it works. Okay, so now that we know it works, we now have to consider a couple of things here. We're now going to test the cooling and heating system for our base. So one thing we could also do is we could set up the activation switch in the ejection here. Inside, that's normally what I do, and I normally do it right here, these two little spots. Then I have the consoles right here. I'm not going to do that right now, though. I'm going to do this manually. So all of this is forward pressure, I think. Is this? I forget. Yeah, this is output. This is input. You know, this output, this input. Okay, this is input. My bad. Yeah, we want to make sure this is always on full, but that's when we actually make our furnace. I'm not going to be doing that right now. I'm going to be doing this. We're just kind of looking at the temperature go up. It's not really going up too high. If I did nitrous oxide and I did volatiles, it would go up. If you use the purest, it goes up to like 5,500 degrees Celsius, which is just a disgusting amount. So now I'm going to start outputting. We're going to store. And let's look at what we got going here. Yep, I want it all gone. Just go ahead and suck it all out. And as long as it doesn't combust inside the tank, it shouldn't be too much pressure. And here we have 5 gases. There's 7 in the game. The only ones we're missing here, it looks like water and nitrous oxide. And that's it. You can get nitrous oxide from nitrous, so yeah, here we go. Now it's empty. We turn it off. Well, we don't have to turn it off. We do that. Okay. Stop storing. And now it should stop. It's no longer storing or anything like that, but because that pipe is insulated, what will happen is the next time we use this, if we put any kind of gas in through here directly, it'll immediately combust. That's why we set this to maximum. See? That way it doesn't instantly combust in here. Alright. And now we got some math to do. So essentially our base says it's 86 kPa. That's actually quite impressive. I don't recall this map going up that high. But either way, it doesn't matter too much. Let's go ahead and test out our heating and cooling now. So we're going to start with heating. And as you can see, it's immediately heating up the base in a pace that's actually pretty good. This is pretty good heating. And the temperature in there might not be too nice, but out there it's supposed to be quite a bit. It's supposed to be almost, it's 1700 degrees Celsius, switching with the inside of our base right now. So let's go ahead and make sure that we actually sealed everything off. I think we did. It takes a good second. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and come outside. Y'all can see the temperature in there is dropping. It's dropping ridiculously fast. I can't seem to find the actual point where it would be dropping that fast for any reason unless there was some kind of escape in our base, which I doubt. It doesn't look like there is. The pressure really is 86. Oh, that's because this is the original Europa. Yeah, the original Europa had more pressure. So as you can see, our base is still heating up, but guess what? It's heating up, and it's honestly not really doing too bad. But now we need a system to bleed out. I've actually never had to do this, like, ever, so... Yeah, I've seriously never had to do this before. I'm gonna go ahead and go outside. This is because I got the pressure wrong for this base. I forgot that the original Europa was more pressure. That's why it was always harder. No, there we go. Now we can back pressure regulate, and now keep our base from starting to do dumb things we don't want it to do. However, it's not going to be too big of an issue except for right here, where we have a room that can go 0. And the more the pressure goes up, the harder it ends up being for, well, it's supposed to be easier for temperature to exchange, but it's just going too much. So, yeah, here we go. That's going up a good amount now. And that should give you an idea of how this regulates the temperature exchange here. So it might be sacrificing some temperature over there, but the way it's exchanging it is such that it's actually gradually getting our temperature up higher and higher inside here, while sacrificing the temperature from the furnace that the stuff we just burnt. So it's still actually a good amount. If we come here, we can see we're at 600, 650. As the back pressure regulator, it should start regulating soon. It should start pumping out. Yeah, that was a massive exchange of heat, but it didn't blow everything in my base, which is what I'm used to. I'm used to everything just getting too hot too quick, because all like 1700 Celsius would come in the room instantly, and I'd instantly have 300 degrees Celsius or 200 degrees Celsius, and I wouldn't be able to do anything with that. Then I'd have to cool it slowly if that was the case. But this way, here we have a different scenario where the battery now doesn't waste because it's in here. We're going to wait until it gets to 20 Celsius so I can show something else. I could actually take my... Oh, you know what? So now that it's at the pressure it's at, I'm actually not able to use this anymore until it's done doing what it's doing, because if I do use it, it'll go to 0 pressure in here, and the pressure difference will cause this door to start getting damaged. And so if your pressure is like 180 kPa difference, then you start having some problems, which is why bases on Venus don't really last that long. So it might be a bigger difference than that, actually. Let me see, are we there yet? Yeah, we're there. All right, so I stopped the heating now. Let's look at what happens. It goes down, goes down, goes down. Instantly rubber band down. Now we're at a solid amount. You see the pipe network, it shows the temperature is not too bad. It's 24. All right, so now we have to worry about the temperature in here a little bit, but not too much. Now we do this. And when we do this, the process is going to be slower, obviously. But it did go down a temperature. See? It did went down a single one. And this is like the simplest of solutions you could imagine for keeping your base cold without making a wall cooler or a wall heater or anything. This is, I'm sure somebody already made a video on this, but this is the new update. So things can turn to liquid, etc. So I figured Europa would be the greatest place to start because Europa kind of shows. Man, what's up with this though? Like, this used to be a lot more powerful, but it's not. That's because the outside's pressure difference is a little bit wacky. So I think what I should do, I think I know what I should do. We're gonna stop the cooling. Well, we'll keep the cooling going. We'll let our we'll let our door get damaged. If it does, we can't guarantee it will. All right, and what we want here. So active vents actually are extremely costly. In terms of energy, they cost a lot of energy to use. You don't want to continuously use an active vent. That's exactly what we're going to do here because we want this pipe here to hurry up and finish the inside of our base. Wow, our jetpack's thrust is 41. Jeez. Let's go ahead and fix that. There we go. All right, our cooling keeps going. It's daytime, and as you can see, we dropped 3 degrees Celsius in this room entirely from the single radiator here. And that's essentially just exchanging temperature with the outside. Let's see, is that 20 over here? No, it's not yet. Now it is, okay. Now we stop the cooling. And the only thing that could be done now is if this pipe keeps removing its pressure, which it's not doing. Oh man, this is terrible. Well, I can see visually that it is in fact releasing air. But ultimately, if we were to get the network analyzer out, and we put it to here, and we'll go ahead. The active vent's only doing 100 watts. That's not too bad, actually. That's and that's not too bad. And so yeah, this was just creative mode, and this was me messing around. And I thought I'd show out the solutions for heating and cooling the base on Europa because a lot of people are intimidated because they don't have simple solutions to Europa. And as you can tell, I don't even need these switches. I could have manually valved this. I could have had the valve in the inside and just twisted it. And I could have had the cheap radiators on the wall instead, and it would have done just as good of a job. I could have done that all manual. I could set this up all manual. You can even imagine it in your head right now, the way it would work. So, oh, it actually went up a temperature. That's not too bad. Yes, I said went up a temperature instead of a degree. Do something about it. All right. Now, I guess the last thing I should show off, perhaps, and this will be the end of the video when I show this off, is coding really quick to just automate the process for cooling the base with the system. And I think I'll do that over here. Mm, yeah, I'll do it right here. Programmable motherboard, which is going to be called edit chip or whatever inside the game when you actually try to get your hands on it. And now we get the integrated, then the logic circuit, which is called the IC housing when you actually print the thing. I think we want to put this somewhere else. Yeah, let's put it right over here. No, we can't do it there. It's got to be like this. Do it like this. Yeah, I don't think I want to connect them like that. It's not a bad idea, but it won't do anything, but I just still, bad habit. All right, so we actually want the switches themselves to be connected here since we already coded the switches. And so we'll go ahead and go to the switches, which is going to be the heating. Well, actually, we don't want that yet. We want the sensor, the gas sensor. So essentially, come to the gas sensor. Now the heating. Now the cooling. All right, turn this on. Let's go ahead and name this. Base AC. Now this isn't an AC system that uses any kind of liquid or anything because this is Europa. And so the way I like to program this is first I like to make 3 statements saying what everything is. Gas sensor, heating, cooling. All right, so D0 is gas sensor, D1 is heating, D2 is cooling. And another way to do it is just to give them aliases at the beginning. But that can lead to some bad habits too, so it's really up to you, however you like to code. So we make our main loop, jmain, and then at the end of our loop, we're going to make sure everything's off. So essentially, what we say is like First, we wanna go ahead and load in. So load in the first register the temperature of the base as read from the gas sensor, or D0 in this case. So once it does that, we need some statements, right? So heating, J main, cooling, J main. And this is a simple script that any of you can use. It's not too bad. But essentially, if it's greater than, we'll start with less than. So if it's less than, and we want to say 10 degrees Celsius maybe, or maybe 19, right? So that's if essentially R0. All right, so this is room temperature right here. We don't want that, all right, because then if it's too close, it has to be completely accurate. We want to go one down. So if essentially the temperature is 292 Kelvin, also 19 degrees Celsius, that's another way to put it, then we will say that we want the heater to be on. So essentially heating. And if the heater is on, what happens is we want to save to D1, right? We want to save on 1. All right. Now we do BGT, which is greater than. So B stands for branch, branch greater than 4, or 294 Kelvin. So if the temperature is greater than 294 Kelvin, cooling, right? So we made this branch down here for cooling, and we'll go ahead and save on to 1. Now, if it's neither, it skips both of these and resets. So here, if it's neither, there's a bit of a problem because remember, essentially, the heater will remain on. There's nothing to tell it to turn off yet. So if it needs to turn off, we'll just say turn it off here. And then we'll just turn this one off right here, which is on 0. And so this should essentially load the temperature every time. Branch if less than our temperature, so it turns on the heat, which it shows right here. Branch if it's essentially, okay, so now shut off the heat if it's where we want now. Branch if it's greater than the temperature, turn on the cold air, and turn it off when it's where we want, and then just reset. The only catch is that essentially we have to type yield right at the beginning, or else the game will process and process without yielding to any of the other processes going on, and it'll yield every single time. So both of these jump back to the main. Neither of them will jump back to their line because we'll have to use special code for that. But to show what that looks like, we would put an AL at the end. And instead of JMain, we would put JRaw, and that goes back to the AL because it stores the line as AL when we put AL at the end of our command, which is the first statement on the line, essentially. That's the best way I can describe it. So essentially, we just go ahead and export this, check our code one more time. It looks good to us. And then we click here. And it's got a line 8 error. So we look at line 8. And essentially, it's saying save D1 on. All right, so D1 is heating. All right, so heating is right here. All right. So right here, essentially, whenever it says save D1 on 0, it's saying that we don't have, let's see, because this is a switch heating, this is a switch cooling. And the reason why is because I forgot that switches are settings. They're not on and off their settings, so I have to actually change this to setting. But if you use it to the valve directly, you won't put setting. This is only for switches. If you're doing it to the switch, you put setting. All right, so that was an actual mistake. All right, let's try it again. Line 8 again. Why is this? State? Is it state? All right, give me 1 second. All right, so this is the most arbitrary thing ever. But apparently, it's actually open. They made it open, so open is actually the setting. So if it's to a device directly, and it's on or off, it should be called on. If it's to a before we do anything here, I'll just confirm it, export it. Make sure you click export. You can see the chip has some bytes on it. If it's to something that has a dial or something like that, and it can go between 0 to whatever number, it's setting. But for some reason, instead of setting, this is open. And it says right here, too, when I look at it, it says open, really big, right next to left mouse button, open. So we're going to click it now. And it's actually perfectly 20 degrees in here. So nothing's happening. I am actually dissatisfied. I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to purposely heat the base a little bit more. All right, now we're going to stop heating the base. That is some robust heating. And now the heating is stopped. We're now starting to rubber band a little bit, but not that much, just enough to go to 23C. And then we click this, and it immediately switches the cool on, and it's going to cool to 20 degrees Celsius. So now we have automated air conditioning. We don't have a filtration system. If you wanted to essentially do that, by the way, right where my computer is at, that is exactly where we use the air from in here, and only in here. We don't open that because that would be very dumb when we do this. So you would have to turn this off, and then you'd have to use the air from in here, and you can actually send out carbon into your base just enough to start growing something. And that's essentially all you really need at first, but you wouldn't want to grow light, so you'd have to get some electrum early, so that way you can just grow your crops. And electrum's pretty easy. The only hard thing to make, um, basically, in this game at the beginning is invariable. And invariable is really the one material that separates you from tier 2 materials other than steel. Steel is very easy to make. And so I'll leave this running for now until this is basically the end of the video. I'm not going to show anything else. And so that way we can just see that it automatically turns this off without turning this on. And that's a solution to my essentially my air in the base. I made the entire base. So if anyone wants to plagiarize, that's fine. I actually did it just for that. Because people are very indecisive. And if you do, then I would advise that you do a little bit of this. A little bit of this. And these are extremely useful for this room because you'll have a vent here that push everything back out. Because this is just like the fast way out to the side if you're building out here. And you can put everything you want in here intermediately to go back in and out. And the same over here. And the last thing I'll do, and as you can see, it turned itself off. It turned itself off. It all turned itself off. Now let's go ahead and get our spray gun out. All right, so I normally don't have these brown. I normally have them some other color. We'll make them red for now because yellow swag, 360 no scope. Oh no, oh my goodness. Oh, and the heater turned on. Nice. Very nice. And I think that's honestly it. All right, you can stop watching if you want, or you can watch me make sure that the heater stops on its own as well in a second if you want. See what that looks like. It didn't even a rubber band. Oh, wait, yeah, it did. It's still above 19C. It's not exactly 19C, so it's not turning back on. So it did rubber band a little bit, but that's not a big deal. And then I'd put grading in here too if I were you, but that's, whatever. You see the white light on the distance, or the red light, which doesn't currently work because I didn't wire it to the power. There we go. That's what that looks like whenever I actually set it up. Whenever the power is about to go out. When it's at 20%, it's like, hey, do something. All right, thank you guys for watching the video. That's pretty much it. I actually don't know how to solve this problem right now, but I'll probably end up trying to do a pump in a second, and that might fix it. And if it doesn't, I'd have to actually put an active vent inside instead of outside, which is probably what I'd have to do. But yeah, thank y'all guys for watching, and have a good one.